Hi, everybody. Today, we're going to continue on with our economics because now we know the questions about choice, decision, opportunity cost, and we also know how to compare different countries and how to look at how countries are doing on a comparative scale. Today, we're going to go into a little bit of American history to see how times were not always the same that they are now, and a time in American history where things went very much differently. So, first, one vocabulary word is the word depression. And a depression is when unemployment is high for a long period of time and a country gets poorer. So, this happens because of anything that's going to make people have less money. In the case of the Great Depression, a lot of people lost money because banks went under, but it could happen for any other reason that lots of people all lose money at the same time. Depression is a cycle. So if people have less money, then they're going to spend less money, which means that companies get less money. If companies have less money, then they fire more workers. So then unemployment increases. There are fewer people have jobs. If they don't have jobs, then they have less money, and it just keeps going around and around and getting worse and worse. So this is what happened in the 1930s. It all started in 1929 when the stock market crashed. The stock market, a lot of people put a lot of their money into it because it's a place where you can buy pieces of companies. And if you do well, then you can make a lot of money without actually doing any work. You're just buying companies and other people do the work in the company, and then your piece of the company that you bought makes you money. But when the stock market crashed, many people lost all of their money. So when these people lose all of their money, then just like we saw in that cycle, they spend less, companies have less, they fire people. All these things start getting worse and worse, and a depression starts. So in 1929, that's what happened. So what happened was no money meant that there were no jobs. So you can see here, August 1929, the unemployment rate was at about zero. So almost everybody had a job. And then it goes up and up and up. And 3 years later, 25% of people are unemployed. The unemployment rate is at 25%. That is huge. That means 1 out of every 4 people who's looking for a job can't get a job. Huge. So what you would see were things called bread lines, where you'd have hundreds and hundreds of people waiting somewhere, maybe outside a church, maybe outside a store where somebody's being nice and giving away free food. But this is basically the line for a soup kitchen, and sometimes it would go all the way around the block for people waiting for food. And you can see from the pictures here, these guys are wearing nice hats, they're wearing nice coats, some of them are wearing suits, but these were not poor people. These are people who had good jobs, but then they just lost them because the economy was in a depression. There were also people called hobos who often were in the same position, and the word hobo comes from there. Hobo is a person who wanders around looking for work, and they usually hopped on trains like this guy to get from one town to another. And that's where the word hobo comes from the Great Depression. So there's a song on your paper. The lyrics are there for you to check out. So pause the video, go to the link that's right there, and then listen to the song. Make sure you answer the questions on your paper when you're finished listening. Go ahead. So a lot of the people who lost their jobs had to make choices. And this is where opportunity cost comes in. So you would have somebody who was relatively rich, who had a good job, made good money, paid all their taxes, paid all their rent, and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden they lose their job and they're out of money and they can't get another job because there just aren't places to get them. So people would have to make choices, and every time they made a choice, there was an opportunity cost to that choice. So, for example, some people who lived in nice houses in the city would have to move out to a place like this. They were called Hoovervilles, and those were really just shanty towns outside of the town. So if you don't have the money to pay your rent, you can either use your money that you're paying for food and try to pay your rent and then starve yourself. Or you can choose to move out to a shanty town like this where your housing is terrible, but at least you have a house and you have food. So every choice that people were making would have a cost. You can pick one thing or the other, but you can't have your big house and your food anymore because you don't have enough money. So that's showing that things get more difficult. Opportunity cost gets higher and higher and harder when you don't have enough money. So this is a close-up of one of those houses. And literally, these would be people who had good jobs in banks and all that kind of stuff. And then they lost their job. So they had to make that choice to move out here so they could still feed their family. Really, really bad times. So I want you to think about, if you lose your job and you have no money, what kinds of choices can you make? If you could only pay for food or a house, what choice do you make? Choices become more difficult, more important. You have to give up more when you have less. So your job now is to go back to your packet. There are 3 accounts of how people had to make hard choices during the Great Depression. Read each of the accounts and answer the questions after them about the choices they had to make and the opportunity cost they had to give up. Good luck.